Good morning, Lauren.
Good morning.
Good morning, Marley. Good morning, Christy. Can't hear you, Christy. Hey, Courtney.
Hey, how are you?
You look beautiful this morning.
Yes. Hey, Lauren.
Good morning, Courtney.
Hey, what are you doing, Liz?
Looks like her audio might still be connecting, so I'm not sure she can hear you yet. Good morning, Chris and Teresa.
Hey, Chris.
Hey.
I think Chris was the person that recommended we talk to you, Courtney. I can't remember. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. As people are joining, I'll just mention that we're get back to our kind of regular. Lynn was a little bit of an anomaly, but today I did want to do our Meet the Lane Mates again. I get good feedback from that. People really enjoy loving the little breakouts. So we'll do that again at about 5 after. Let people have a couple minutes to join in. And I have for Thursday, you might be talking to Carolyn Block, but she also volunteered her spot to talk to Michelle Macy to try to get her back. And Michelle's not gotten back to me yet. She was very accommodating and said she definitely would reschedule with us when I canceled last Tuesday, but I haven't heard from her if she can come on Thursday, hopefully. I'm really excited to talk to, I'm excited to talk to every single person who comes on. But Michelle's just a fellow Oregonian, so it builds that excitement a little bit more. One more minute. And if you haven't, you can now subscribe to Marathon Swim Stories as a podcast on iTunes or Spotify. So you can not have to look at all the people. We've tried to slim it down a little bit, check out some of the chit chat and just get straight to the interviews. So you can get new stuff when they come up. I talked to Sarah Thomas on Friday, so that'll be coming out. I'm still editing it a little bit. That'll be coming out soon. So yeah, just keep doing this because everybody seems to love it, and I sure do.
You just have to get up really early.
Yeah, yeah, I do. But this all started because I would have been at the pool anyway. So I just have to. I still look like I would have just been going to the pool, but I just come here and talk to swimmers. It totally works for me. Good morning, Caroline.
Hi.
I was just mentioning that Michelle still hasn't got back to me, so you might still be up on Thursday. So be ready.
Okay.
Molly's here. Okay, so for Meet the Lane Mates today, I wanted to, I've been thinking a lot about my privilege as a white woman who participates in a very expensive sport. And I wanted to take some time today in our breakout to brainstorm how the marathon swim community can be inclusive. I think it's the least we can do. It'd be easy to just not do it, but I think we can all agree it's an expensive sport, and not everybody can do that if you don't have the means. So I just would love any ideas that we have. I know 5 minutes is hardly enough, but when you're in your breakout room, if you could appoint someone to take notes and send me any ideas that you have. I don't know what we'll do with them, but I figure it's a place to start. It's better than doing nothing. So we'll break out for our 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and talk to Courtney. So if somebody ends up in your group and they didn't hear the intro, let them know. And let's see, we'll go with 3. All right, so I'll see you back at about 1:45 to talk to Courtney. And I guess I was going to say, just an idea that popped in my head just to kind of get the juices flowing was, maybe we could have an athlete on who's raised money for charities that help marginalized youth, or maybe we can look for donors to have events that are free. I don't know. That's why it's a brainstorming session. So put your brains to work. I'll see you at 1:45. Go. Hi. I can turn mine on too.
Here I am. How are you all doing?
We're good. We're in our breakout rooms right now.
Yeah, sorry to be late.
That's okay. The topic I had for today is just a way of acknowledging, I guess, our privilege and brainstorming how the marathon swim community can be inclusive.
A very good topic.
Yeah, it's one of those things that seems easy to just be like, I don't know, it's easy to try to look past it and just keep talking to people and staying on the happy side. But I figure we have this little group of people here. And I think at the meeting with Lynn, I called us a hive mind. So we've got to be able to come up with some good ideas.
So, is Naji, and has he joined this meeting today? Because he has a lot to say, and I think he would really be a good, he would really, have a lot to tell people about being a minority in a swim community. That's
Who was it that you were saying?
Naji Ali.
I think he was my observer when I did Lake Tahoe last year, I think.
Yeah, he's such a cool person. I mean, he was at the when I went 2 years ago when I went to the 24-hour relay. I don't think he was officially on the team, but he was there. He was he was volunteering, I think it was. But he was just a very kind person, and really liked having him there.
It's a good idea. I thought about that, like guests, like maybe we could have.
He might be a good guest, actually.
Yeah.
So as for privilege, I mean, I'm looking at, our open water swim races are starting back up. And so I registered, this was a series of 6 events. It cost me about $100, which is like cheap compared to a lot of things. So, but a lot of people can't afford that kind of, putting in the kind of money that, I mean, I'm fortunate that I'm no Bill Gates or anything. I don't have that kind of cash, but I've been fortunate to have the ability to be part of this. And my coach has been very good, because when I didn't have, when money was tight, he would say, volunteer and I'll give you a discount. So
nice.
He's been very good about that.
Yeah. And I know it's, hi Cheryl, I don't know if you can hear us. Diane and I are doing a small little breakout. The rest of the group will be coming back in about 3 minutes to talk to Courtney. But our topic today for Meet Your Lane Mates was how the marathon swim community can be inclusive, and just kind of acknowledging our privilege and ability to do a lot of really expensive events.
My husband can tell you that.
yeah, exactly.
He's like, what? Like, what? And I'm like, and I tell him, I don't share it a lot, but I've been sober for 8 years. And I'm like, dude, I spent way more money on booze. Okay.
Congratulations for that.
I could be doing worse. So just be happy.
Yeah, right. I hear you. So I don't know, but that's what Diane and I were talking about, though. We just have about 1 more minute. So if there's any other ideas you have, I like, like you've mentioned, like volunteering, Diane, as a way of and giving people prorating entry fees.
And that's something that he's been very good about. And I think that but I think that, in finding ways to maybe scholarship type things that would help people even get on board, and or just, like things that get, that even invite people in and let them know that there are friends. They're not people like gonna be, but there's so many people with stereotypes about
Mhm.
So
Yeah. It's, I
challenge
mean,
and
it's
stereotypes, too.
multifaceted. Yeah. Yeah. We're challenging.
So we going back to the or
I guess the other thing I was thinking, I was like how to reach youth in my community, how can I help?
yeah, because in fact, the reason why so many people were not did not feel invited to swim, so many swim clubs were closed to
Yeah,
people of color.
exactly. Yep. Do you guys have any good ideas? Don't forget to send them anything you had. Shannon at intrepidwater.com or PM me, whatever is easiest.
One thing, if I could just mention one thing that I think has come a long way. When I certified as a WSI, because I'm a Red Cross instructor, I certified in 1990, and part of our actual training was special attention to the fact that Black people have a different physiology and were more likely to drown and struggle in their swim lessons. And I have to tell you, I cannot imagine how that endured to become part of the textbook, even at that time. I wasn't teaching for a year before I knew that was flat out wrong.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just, it was a ridiculous idea.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, because in the history of people swimming, of Black people swimming, it is very, people are, people forget that that was something that people were doing all the time
right.
until, and it was when the slave ships, people would not be allowed to swim or not be allowed to learn how to swim to prevent them from escaping. But in fact, there were, people, there was some documentation of folks in Africa being very proficient swimmers.
Sure.
So that's, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we could do this again, even. I'm super open to that. But right now, I want to talk to Courtney. So if you have ideas, like I said, from your breakout, I'm going to mute everybody before I forget. If you want to come off mute, that's okay, but we want to make sure and mute everybody except Courtney. And Courtney, where did you go? Asking to unmute you, Courtney. And like I said, if you had any ideas in your breakout group, please send them to me. I don't know what we'll do with it, but maybe we'll find something to do with it. And with that, Courtney, tell us about yourself, please.
Okay. So I'm here. So obviously I'm a swimmer. And when I'm not swimming, I'm a lawyer. I'm the president of my law firm in Richmond, which is in Richmond, Virginia, which is a lot of work, which is partly why I swim, I think, because I need the balance between my work and my career. And I've been swimming, gosh, for a really long time, and I love it. And that's why I keep doing it.
Can you tell us about how you started swimming?
Sure. So I started swimming when I learned how to swim when I was 3. My parents took me for swim lessons, and I swam across the pool. Like, I just loved it. I didn't want to get out of the water. And then I started swimming year round when I was 5. And then I swam growing up until I burn out. I didn't swim in college. I was way burnt out, but swam all growing up, and found my distance event when I was old enough to start to do distance events, and swam distance events, when I was older, and loved the distance events, and started swimming really in the open water when I was in high school. I moved to Virginia Beach when I was in high school, and there were lifeguards down there, and most of the lifeguards were boys. And I would go down in my bikini and my ponytail, and I would say, "Are you guys going to swim today?" And then they would look at me, of course, and roll their eyes. And then I would typically swim faster than them. So it got me some dates.
Nice. When did you start swimming marathons?
When I started at my law firm about 20 years ago, I signed up with some friends to do the Chesapeake Bay swim in Maryland. And because I was working really hard and I thought I need to have a goal. And so I did that, and I haven't done it as many times as Chris has done it, but I did it for 15 years and then I abandoned because it got to be too hot. But, and then somewhere along the way in there, I decided I needed to go longer. I started doing marathon swims in probably 2007, I guess, when I swam the Potomac River swim across the mouth of the Potomac from Maryland to, I guess, from Virginia, technically, to Maryland. And then it just blossomed from there, and I've done them ever since.
How do you describe that feeling of completing a marathon swim?
So, you know, to me, when you come out of the water, it's really, you've been in sort of your own space for so long that the immediate feeling is really not different than the feeling that you had when you were swimming. You're so in your own space. And then, you know, I feel like you kind of come out of that over the next 24 hours or so, and you just kind of, you realize what you've done and you're proud of it. And then after that, I think there's a bit of a letdown, because for me, it's not really the swim. I mean, the swim is the end of the journey. It's when you decide you're going to do the swim, and then you plan and you train and you get your crew and you get all your stuff and you get there. I mean, all of that's part of the swim to me. Mm-hmm. And so when you get out of the water and you kind of come out of that, you know, headspace, I feel like it's a little bit of a letdown, which is maybe why I keep going back and doing the same swims over and over again, because I've had that little bit of a letdown. I mean, obviously I'm happy with the swim, but to me, because it's really more about the process and the journey, it is something I want to just start all over again.
I love that. Yeah, as you were talking, I was kind of thinking like, oh yeah, that's why we keep doing it again, because we really like the build up. It's a culmination too. Anyway, how do you balance the training with your busy job for long marathons?
You really just have to prioritize. I make sure I get up in the morning and go swim. I make sure if I don't swim in the morning, I try to swim in the evening. Sometimes I do doubles. You've got to just get it in, and it's balance. And I tell my clients, and my colleagues, I am better at my job if I go do this, because it allows me to have balance in my life. And if I'm just, working, and that's gotten better over the years. But if I'm just working and sitting at a desk for 12 to 15 hours a day, that's not beneficial to anybody. Certainly not to me.
Right. Yeah. Tell us about, do you have a favorite feed that you like when you're swimming? Or are you just one of the people that's the same feed all the time? I feel like there's two camps.
So Liz probably know, and maybe Chris knows this is coming. So typically I do Tailwind and Carbo Pro, but sometimes I like to have egg salad. It is fatty and it's slimy and it's savory. And the first time I did that, I was in Cape Cod Bay, and I was like, there are eggs on the boat and there's mayonnaise. And I yelled up and said, can somebody make me some egg salad? And they actually stopped me and said, do you want salt on it? And I said, I think I don't really need the salt on it. I think I'm good without the salt. But I like to have egg salad.
I love that. I love that. How creative we can all be when we're swimming. Let's see. Tell us about a swim that you're the most proud of.
So the swim that I'm the most proud of is my double Catalina Channel swim. So I started at like 6:45 on a Tuesday, and I finished about 4:15 on 4 o'clock on a Thursday a.m. So over 3 days, I got to Catalina in 12 and a half hours, something like that, and did the turn. Chris was at the turn, gave me all my stuff. I was back in the water in 4 minutes and felt great. And then about halfway back, the current was against me, and it took me 20 plus hours to get back. And it was, the second sunset was pretty awful. But that's definitely the swim that I'm most proud of.
How did you endure when it started getting really tough? How did you endure?
You know, it was the last 9 hours I hallucinated some, and I just kept my head down, and my crew got me through that swim. You know, Dan Simonelli was in the kayak next to me for the last 5 hours, and it was just, you know, late, and the boat actually took a little bit of a wrong path and then corrected. And so that probably added about an hour to the swim, but I just one arm and then the other arm until you get there.
Yeah. How do you adapt when things to like changing situations, both in swimming and in life?
So I don't know if it's over the years, especially with going to court, and you know, you're presented with, you never know what you're going to get when you walk in the door. You know, I've won cases that I should have lost. I've lost cases I should have won. I've, you know, had conditions that I thought were going to be, you know, better than they were or worse, or vice versa. And so you just kind of have to go with it. I mean, you just go with whatever you're presented with. You know, you're either going to keep going or you're going to stop. And I mean, you just choose to keep going. And I mean, I find I'm able to kind of just compartmentalize it and kind of put it over here, and you just focus on the goal and the task, and you just keep moving ahead.
Good advice. Is there anything that you haven't finished?
So that's a funny question to me, because I feel like, you know, wherever you stop swimming is where you were supposed to finish that day. And you know, so I have set out the last 2 years to do a double English Channel swim, and I finished both years in France and didn't make the turn. And so is that a DNF? Because it seems sort of greedy and ridiculous to say, like, well, I feel like I didn't finish that swim because I did swim from England to France. And yeah, I didn't do what I had set out to do that day, but I was very proud of my swim, and I learned a lot, and I, you know, had a great experience. And so I don't know that I would count that as a DNF. I would say I didn't do what I set out to do, but I still think I finished what I was intended to finish that day.
Very sage advice. Lovely. Are you a process or outcome person?
Oh, definitely a process person. You know, I feel like I think that just speaks to the question that I just answered, right? It's about the journey. Before every swim I do, my husband, the very last thing he says to me before I get in the water is to enjoy the journey. And I have a necklace that I wear that says enjoy the journey. And, you know, he kisses me and off I go on my journey, because it's really about that journey and what you learn about yourself along the way. And, you know, the relationships that you form with people when you're training or when you're swimming, and your crew. And it's just been a really great journey. The whole swimming, you know, my whole swimming career, and then also every swim that I do is just a great journey.
That's lovely. You mentioned a few times the things you learn along the way. You want to give us a little window into the things that you've learned along the way?
So in my Catalina Channel swim, before that swim, I would have said that I kept wanting to do longer swims or colder swims, or, you know, push myself to find my limit. And, you know, I'm pretty sure I found my limit. I think Chris would agree. I think I found my limit in that swim. And when I got out, and, you know, as you process it over the next, you know, day, you know, week, month, I kept thinking, well, I wonder if I had started at, 6 a.m., would that have made a difference? Or I wonder if I had eaten more solid food, would that have made a difference? And then I realized what I was trying to do was find a way to push my limit even further when I think I had found my limit. And so then I had to kind of change my perspective. And I thought, well, am I really doing this to find my limit? Because if that was what I was doing, then I achieved that goal because I found my limit in that swim. But if I'm doing these swims because I want to, learn about myself when my character's tested, when I'm out there in the dark, watching the sunset go down for a second time, well, then, that's really what it's about. And it's not about finding my limit. And so you can, learn a lot about yourself in a 2-hour swim as much as you can in a 33-hour swim. And so that's really why I think I do these swims. I think I do them just to find out, what you learn about yourself when your character's tested and when you can push through whatever it is that's in front of you. When my first English Channel swim, I was sick, as people get, in the middle of the swim. And I got sick. And I remember looking up to my crew saying, I feel so much better. And, so that's something that you learn, that once you push yourself past that, you can maybe get past that sickness and get past whatever it is that's, you feel like is in your way or blocking you. And then you learn that you can do that.
That's awesome. Let's see, I have a couple questions in my mind. Let's start with, you've done a lot of solo events, but is there any other, and I guess I think of those a little bit differently, but is there any other events like that are put on by somebody that you've done that you particularly enjoyed or would recommend to people?
So probably my favorite event ever was the 2010 Boston Light Swim. I had never been in really cold water before, and I had never been in an event where, there were so many people that had done so many great things. And at Boston, if you've never done Boston Light Swim, everybody comes the night before and you have dinner together and everybody gets up and introduces themselves and says what they've done. And I'm sitting, my husband's phone is ringing, sorry. Oh, we stopped it. Okay. And I'm sitting there and people are going around the room and they're talking about, how they just got back from swimming the English Channel, or they just swam Catalina, or they just swam Manhattan. And I literally felt like just the biggest poser in the world. I was like, well, I swim across the Potomac River and I've done the Chesapeake Bay. And I just thought, oh my, like do not belong here. And when you take the boat out to Boston Light and the water was 56 degrees. And I thought, there's just no way I'm going to be able to do this. And when I came up on shore, 3 hours and 45 minutes later, or whatever it was, I was like, that was so awesome. I mean, I swam out there with all those great people and they've done so many cool things. And then I probably signed up for the Manhattan Island Marathon swim. So I think the Boston Light Swim was like my favorite event ever. Just because it really, it launched this path that I've been on for the last 10 years.
Thank you for capturing so much of the feelings I've had anytime I've ever gone to a marathon swim. Feeling like the biggest poser ever. I love that because that's how I feel every time. Can you tell us about a favorite memory from one of your events? Any event or solo crossing or anything, just any memory specific? I know there's a million, but any specific memory that jumps out at you? So
when I finished my double Catalina swim, and I'll use this because it's a favorite, but also because Chris is here. So Chris swam in with me when I did the turn, but he also was in the water when I finished. So Dan Simonelli was on the kayak and Chris was there to just kind of help me get back in the water and get back to the boat. And I was getting pounded. It was dark, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was pretty beat up and I was getting thrown against the rocks. I don't know why. This is one of my favorite memories, but I guess it is. And I, you know, had to get all the way up and clear the water in the dark, and, you know, just completely, you know, had a complete and utter, you know, breakdown, started crying, and I was happy. I was hallucinating. I was, had every single emotion that you can possibly have. I think I had it all together right at the end of that swim. So that's just it's a great memory.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like it. Oh man. Apparently it is a little too early for me to keep my thoughts all connected. So like I'll have a thought while you're talking and then I completely forget it. Oh, the quarantine. What has the pandemic been like for you? How have you been getting through that?
So, you know, that's interesting too, is, you know, normally it's really, you know, you get up, you go to the pool, you do your swim, you go to work, and it's just like your day is sort of routine and predictable. And now there's flexibility and it's not as predictable. But the best thing I can say is I have had an opportunity to make some new friends, like Lauren, who's on the call, because I had to go to the open water, and I had to keep training. I needed it for my sanity, but also to stay just on track. And I live about an hour and a half away from the Chesapeake Bay, and I have been going down there and training in the open water. So I've actually done more open water training this year than I've ever done in my life, because there haven't been pools to swim in. And the benefit to that, I think, is tremendous. I just, you know, you're going to swim better in open water if you train in open water. And so it's been kind of great to have the flexibility and to just push you to say, okay, I can either not train. I can either say, you know, I'm not going to do this, or I have something that's really not that far away, and I have great new friends, and they've been training with me, and we've done some really fun swims, and that's just great. It's been great.
Yeah, I love that. I love the little gifts, I call them, that have been cropping up through this pandemic. You spoke alluded a little bit to having done an extended amount of pool time. How do you usually balance that percentage-wise in your training, pool versus open water, historically versus this year?
Yeah, it depends on the time of the year. So I tend to do probably mostly pool training until March, and then, you know, maybe 10% in the open water in April, and maybe 20% in the open water in May. And then in June and July, I would say by July, I'm typically, you know, 75% in the open water.
Do you still have any swims on your radar this year that are happening?
So I'm still planning to go to England for another double English Channel attempt in August, but we'll see.
See what happens. Yeah.
They, unlike Catalina and New York, they haven't canceled. And I said to my husband the other day, I said, gosh, I'm doing all this training and all the swimming, and I really hope, you know, this goes, but if it doesn't, I'll be okay. And he said, it's like planning for a trial when you think the case might settle. You know,
right.
You still have to keep preparing until somebody says that you're not going. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm going to keep preparing as if I'm going. And, you know, maybe I'll go, maybe I won't go. I guess we'll find out between now and August.
Between now and August, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, we're all right there with you. Is there any swimmer that you've particularly admired and that's inspired you?
So Liz Fry and Chris Redford, who are both here on this call. Chris, when I did my first Manhattan Island Marathon swim, Chris and I became friends, and, you know, he was one of the people that I certainly felt like a poser around, because he had done so many Manhattan Island Marathon swims, but he was so nice and so kind and was there when I finished. And so I certainly admired him. And then Liz, I mean, of course, Liz is just amazing and has given me tons of advice. And I actually met Liz for the first time right after my first Manhattan Island Marathon swim when we went to an event in New York that day. And she also was very kind and invited me up to her house in Connecticut. And she probably doesn't even remember that, but I was like, this is amazing. I love these people.
Yes, yes. Awesome. What advice would you give to an aspiring marathon swimmer?
So, you hear that you should swim, like if you're in a bad place, you should swim to your next feed and just swim to your next feed. And to me, that's too long. Like, I think that the best advice that I ever got was before my first English Channel swim. I went out, I got on the boat and we got to Shakespeare Beach, and the fog, it was 4 a.m. The fog was so thick, the captain called it. So, I mean, I am there, I'm greased up, I'm ready to go. And the swim got called and I had to go back to my house. And I was in a really bad place because I thought, you get up, you're there, you're like ready to go. And then all of a sudden you're back in your lodging. So I called one of my friends and we were talking about it. And I said, what do I do? And he said to me, you get up tomorrow and you go back, because I was, assuming the fog was lifted, the conditions were fine. And so you go back tomorrow and you stand on the beach and you tell yourself that you're going to take one stroke and then the other stroke, and you're going to get one arm and then the other arm until you get to France. And so to me, the best advice is to break your swim down into the smallest possible unit and tell yourself you can do just a little bit more. And, swimming to your next feed, if you've just had a feed, that's 30 minutes. And, that might be, some people may not be able to overcome that, but telling yourself you can take 20 more strokes and then you do those 20 strokes and then maybe you can take 20 more strokes. That to me is, because when you think about it, when you're standing on shore, if you really think about what you're getting ready to do, you wouldn't do it probably. Like you would say, there is no way I can swim from here all the way to France. Like there's no way I can do that. But if you say, I'm just going to put one arm and then the other arm, it takes away, the enormity of what you're getting ready to do. And it just makes it way, much more manageable to me. And I do that really in like my job too. If I think about, oh my gosh, I've got to write this brief, or I've got to prepare for this trial, or whatever it might be, I just say, okay, I can write one page. And then, and then it becomes easier and it starts to flow. And so to me, it's breaking it down into those smaller units of time to try to, minimize the enormity of what you're doing.
I love that so much. I just started thinking like, wow, how could I break it down to even like parts of my stroke? Like what if it's like, okay, catch, pull, because you kind of do, but I love thinking about it like that. It's all about staying right in the present, right? Beautiful. So I'm gonna give you the last question, but I'm gonna warn people, if you want to come off mute to ask a question to Courtney, get ready. But the last question, who should we have as a future guest on Marathon Swim Stories?
So I thought, obviously, I knew you were going to ask that. And so I thought a little bit about it, and I looked at the people that were you had interviewed, and I mean, Liz is on here, so I would say Liz, but
she won't respond to me.
Well, I knew that. I mean, I like shocker. I knew that was going to be the answer. So I thought about some backups just in case Liz was unwilling. And I noticed you had a lot of people in the US and also a good number of women. So I thought, I brainstormed a little bit about some men that are not in the US. And I came up with Mike Gregory, who is a swimmer in Australia, and Mike has done for English Channel Swims and is a dear friend. And I think he, he coaches and he would be a great person to come on and talk. And then I have another option too, and that's a friend of mine in Germany, Matthias Kastner, who is awesome. And I think Matthias would do a great job.
Awesome. Love that. Thank you for pushing us around the globe. We're going to try to come all the way around. Jamie Monahan had recommended the first person that swam around Hong Kong. So anyway, I've got my list. It just goes on and on and on. This is so much fun. All right. Any questions for Courtney? Give people a minute to come off mute. Anybody?
I'll just say this. You haven't reached your limit, Courtney. You could have taken 2 more strokes than Catalina. There's always something else.
Yeah, maybe 2 more.
All right, I forgot. I keep forgetting our screenshots. So let me real quick put your camera on. We'll take a screenshot of everybody. I don't know. Sometimes I catalog these. Sometimes I pin them to the post, but it's fun to have them. So ready, 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Thank you so much, Courtney.
Thank
That
love
was
your
great, Courtney.
fantastic.
Throw me on the bus. Thanks.
Hey, thank you for all the good advice. I want to have one question. I'm just curious, like, do you do Dryland training, and what are your thoughts about it? What would you, like, if somebody, like, especially during the quarantine period when I was pretty much doing that, walking, running, doing some weights and everything. But, even when there's no quarantine, I've been thinking that I need to do some more strength training. What do you, what are your thoughts about that?
So I do band work, I do Pilates on a reformer, and I have a rower, and I row. Those are the 3 main things that I do. I mostly to get shoulder stability, to try to work on your, you get so many, everything wants to pull forward, so you work on your upper back muscles and shoulder scapular stability.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Fantastic advice.
I'm just going to make a comment. Liz, you were in our breakout room. If we had only known you were so talkative there, you could do it.
You can do one-on-one.
Yeah.
Well, I have a Zoom call on Friday with 8-year-olds, and I'll see how I do there.
That's a harder audience, I think.
Yeah.
And
All right, you guys.
I just want to thank Courtney for finding us. So as Bill said, that since Courtney's been swimming with our group that we have in Hampton, that he said the other day, he goes, Courtney's really upped our game. So we've come a whole lot more this year than we have ever.
It's good peer pressure. I keep telling them it's peer pressure. Like we can do another lap. Let's do another one.
Yeah. It's also been cold, so we would never be in when it's this cold.
I love it.
Okay.
All right,
I
you guys.
wish I knew about them when I lived in Richmond.
Great. It's been great.
All right, you guys. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Take care, everybody. Have a great